Buenos dias. Good day. My name is Leroy Pacheco, President and CEO of the New Mexico Community Development Loan Fund. We're a nonprofit organization that has been in business for over 30 years. We've made over $112 million of small business loans and created over 12,000 jobs in the last 30 years. I've been working in banking, small business administration, nonprofits for over 50 years. I'm pleased today to bring you a bilingual workbook developed by Dr. Marvin Lozano and his wife, Dr. Michela Rivera, psychologist. I think you're going to be excited to take a look at a bilingual approach for Latinos throughout the United States and elsewhere. I am pleased to announce today that we have developed a bilingual approach workbook that I believe will be a resource for those of you that own or run family-owned businesses. You will see the importance of culture. You will see the importance of good planning, good organizational charts with roles that are describing exactly what your cousin, your grandmother, your aunt, your father, your mother should be doing in the success of your family-owned businesses. Come and take a ride with us. I think you'll enjoy it. Come and learn about balancing business, family, and culture. I invite you to take a look at this workbook. You will hear also testimonials from successful business owners throughout the United States. They will tell you intimate details about their own family business and the generations that go back in making sure that culture and family is integrated into the operation of a successful business. Again, take a ride with us. I welcome you to take a look at this workbook. I hope it will become another tool in your toolbox for successful business. Gracias.
Hi, my name's Michela Rivera, and I'm a clinical psychologist. I have many years of experience in working with children, youth, and families, mostly Latinos, much of the time. And I've also done administration of human services as well. So a few years ago, I was fortunate to be able to co-author a book with Marvin Lozano, who's here today. We're here together talking about our book, The U.S. Latino Entrepreneur's Guide to Balancing Business, Family, and Culture. And we have a very engaging and interesting guest with us today. So I want to turn it over to Marvin.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. I too am delighted to be here today, and looking forward to having an opportunity to interview a very successful entrepreneur, Tony Trujillo, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so what brought me here is a journey through, as a young man, when I was reading his book, I saw some similarities that I experienced. I was a monolingual young student myself. I didn't speak strong English, and so I learned to become very proficient in English. I thought that was the way for myself to do the things I wanted to do down the road, and that was to become an entrepreneurial consultant. In those years, it was to go somewhere that my family had not been. They were hard workers, but my mom used to say, someday you'll wear a white shirt. Although I'm not wearing one today. That was the goal, right? And so I've gone on through a pretty successful journey through lenders, starting with CDFI to commercial banks with those opportunities, and on to teaching at community colleges and several universities. So I'm very happy to be here because, as Dr. Rivera mentioned, we jointly wrote this book after many years of reflecting on the need for a book like this that would be focusing on Latino businesses that integrate balancing business, family, and culture. As I said, we're very excited about having Mr. Tony Trujillo here with us today, a very successful entrepreneur with a very wonderful story to share. Let you know, he too is an author. He's actually written a book from his many experiences that he'll be sharing with you today. And I'll just put the book up a little bit. The title is From the Barrio to the Boardroom. And it's a very, very interesting book that you all are able to buy and learn from to become successful entrepreneurs the way he is. But just briefly, what led, I think, and he can tell you more about this, would be as he began through his journey to become a successful entrepreneur. But he's definitely someone who's dedicated to his grandchildren, and he's written the book with an effort to give them something that will help them navigate the world of business so that they too can grow. And he's very humble in saying that he definitely shows gratitude to his family and many friends and associates that have helped him and help him share his story and his experience. He was born and he was raised in Martinez Town here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and entered school as what's typically referred to as strictly a Spanish speaker. Some folks would say a monolingual, which is to speak Spanish, but through the help of encouraging teachers and through his drive and his determination, he learned English and became an honor roll student. And of course, that translated into his success as he took his first job out of high school with Holman's House of Maps. And that business subsequently grew into a successful, high-tech, multi-million-dollar business. So very, very successful individual. And so what I'd like to do is then ask Tony, Mr. Trujillo, to begin with telling us a little bit about his formative years and what led him to Holman's.
Well, thank you for the nice introduction. Appreciate that. So I needed a job, and I was looking for what was available back in 1966. And Holman's was located on the corner of Copper and Wyoming. You may remember that. And it was a small mom and pop shop. We sold maps, books, and drafting supplies primarily. And when I walked in and interviewed with Mr. Holman and hired me on the spot, I thought, well, I'll take this job because I have a family and I need to work to make money. And so, but in the meantime, I had other applications with AMREP, which was in Rio Rancho, the land development company that developed Rio Rancho. And I also had another one with the Southern Union Gas Company, now New Mexico Gas. After 2 weeks of working at Holman's, there's something about it. I just fell in love with it. The customers, the products, it just seems to me this is so natural for me. Because I had taken some drafting classes in high school, and I've taken some at, back then it was called Albuquerque TVI, now it's Central New Mexico University. So in doing so, I really liked what was going on. So I get the job offer because I had applied for a civil tech internship, and AMREP needed one. I said, nah, I don't think so. Back then, Rio Rancho was way out west, Yeah. And of course now it's connected so well to the city. And the other one was the gas company. And that one had a lot of things to offer, the benefits, the college and things, and they had a civil tech internship available. So I mentioned to the HR person, I said, I've really been wanting to get into your organization, but I think I found something that I really like. And he says, Tony, don't worry about it. If it doesn't work out, I'll get you in. That's all I needed to hear. I never called him back because obviously I stuck with Holman's and ended up really getting involved with the aspects of business. And I had a good mentor with Mr. Holman. It was Mr. Holman and Mrs. Holman. Mrs. Holman ran the map department. And we had, back in those days, before the Google days, we had the topo maps, with topography and stuff, and you'd come and buy the area that you wanted. If you had land, you could buy it for that, for legal descriptions, or if you're going hunting or fishing, you had that. And then Mr. Holman did the drafting supplies, the technical books, and many other things that he had at the time at this old store. And so my job was really just working in the retail at that time. and getting to know the business. So I was mentored with Mr. Holman. He was a graduate of the University of Tennessee. She came from South Carolina. And of course, I come from Martineztown, the body of Martineztown. So you can imagine, they had the Southern accent. So if you hear a little Southern drawl in me, you know where I picked that up, you know. So I started there, and he, because he graduated from the University of Tennessee in engineering, he also was served in the Marine Corps. And so, but he had a natural ability for business. He knew how to run business. And I think where I came in is, even though I didn't want to do sales, I didn't want to do business, and I didn't want to do technology at the time. I had no interest in that. I wanted to do civil tech, you know. But after a time, it just sort of embraced me and just took over. And little by little, I learned more about sales. I overcame my shyness when I was speaking with people, and learned about the products and started working on that. So he then taught me the business aspects, you know, how to sustain a business, because he had come from the Depression era. And so he understood what it was when no jobs were available, no money was available, and food was very limited. He understood that. And so I kind of gathered that because I grew up with my grandparents. And so basically they were in that same situation at one time. So that's kind of I started my journey into Holman's in that respect. Real simple.
Very interesting. It almost sounds like it felt like home.
It did. It did.
In many ways.
It definitely was. Even though we called it back then the Holman's the House of Maps, you know, we had a big billboard out in the corner of Copper and Wyoming where it said Holman's House of Maps, you know, and Mrs. Holman would wallpaper all the maps on the walls, the ceiling, and everything else. So you really felt like you really got into something. And then, of course, all the technical supplies. Keep in mind, technology wasn't in at that point in time, so everything was done manually with slide rules, as we were talking about, scales and things like that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Interesting. Well, I was interested in what inspired you at Holman's to decide that leadership would be one of the paths and contributions you were going to make.
So that evolved. And I think I learned a lot from Mr. Holman on that as far as leading people. You know, being a Marine, you had to be very disciplined with him, you know. Yes. And that was fine with me because I probably needed that because I started when I was roughly 19 years old. So it was a learning experience for me. But I think what I started learning is you start hiring people and you start working with them and training them. And you learn right off the bat that you have to take time to train. And it's not an issue if it's a training issue. You know, until the person is not learning what they've been taught after the second, maybe even the third time. They get, in my explanation, you get 3 strikes. Mm-hmm. Third one, you're out. And so you start learning a little bit about leadership in that respect. If you're not going to work out, it's probably mutually better for both parties to depart. And they move on to something else, and you find somebody else to replace them in that respect. So, but as far as the leadership of the business, I started getting very interested in doing more with the business. I saw the opportunities in talking with people. We had people that would walk in that were directors at Sandia National Laboratories. Oh. And Mr. Holman would introduce them to me. And a week later, they'd come back, because we had the technical books. These are books on mathematics, physics, chemistry. You know, don't ask me anything about those. I had no clue. I checked them in and priced them and put them on the shelf and things like that. And I knew where they were because I had a good memory back in those days. But the memory that really helped me is I would remember their name. Oh, okay. So the next time they come into the store, I would remember, and it would just blow them away, you know, that I would remember them such a short notice. So that started to show some promise in knowing more about the customer and learning more about the customer. And by learning more about the customer, my goal has always been to anticipate the customer's needs. What are they going to need today, and what are they going to need tomorrow? And whoever does that well is going to be very successful in business.
So you were trying to keep a step ahead
Always.
and build a relationship
Absolutely.
built on respect
Yes.
for the people.
Yep.
Okay.
And you did that by good customer service. You did that by communication, always following up with a customer if they had placed an order with you. Try to always call them and let them know the status. We just finished up going through a pandemic, and then we get out of that and we get into supply chain. We handle products from Hewlett Packard, an Apple computer company. You may know of those companies.
Yes. Yes.
But anyway, we just celebrated 50 years with Hewlett Packard. We started with them in 1972 with this product right here,
I remember that.
the HP 35.
When it first came out.
Product, yeah.
And so
Exactly.
this is the product that I introduced to Holman, and it took me a while to get Mr. Holman to let me put this in our inventory, And we went through, I would request it, and he would say no. I'd go back a second time, he'd say no. The third time, he'd say, read my lips, hell no. And so, but I wouldn't take no for an answer, I knew that this is the future of Holman's, the beginning of something really exciting to happen. So he finally caved in to me. Of course, he outlined some specifications for me that I needed to share with Hewlett Packard. And they came back and they agreed to those. So, the training, the support, and things of that nature, that when you're running a business, you have to have those things so that you could provide that kind of support and training for your customers. So he allowed me to go ahead and take it on. So the minimum order was for 10 units plus one demo, $395, $4,000 plus.
Wow.
That's a lot of money in 1972.
That was a lot of money then.
And so, and he didn't think I could sell them, okay? So what do you think I sold in the first 30 days?
At least 10 of them, probably.
Okay.
Right.
What's your guess, Marvin?
Well, probably more than 10.
I sold 300 of them.
Holy cow,
Yeah.
really?
And
In the first 30 days?
first 30 days, one a day pretty much.
Is that right?
And he didn't think I could sell these to students. I said, no, Mr. Holman, if you're at the University of New Mexico or any other college, taking mathematics or engineering or whatever, this is a godsend because all your trig functions are here, all your log functions are here. And this is how we were doing it before.
I do remember that.
Of course, we remember the slide rule.
Yes.
So fortunately, I had sold these to the schools and the students and their parents and people at Sandia. So the transition from here to here was really simple for me. Okay. It was just selling a better product than that's ever been invented, So we had those kind of moments where you have to reinvent a business on a regular basis. You can't get stagnant or complacent. You're always looking at how do I advance my business? How do I re-engineer Holman's to another level?
So you're always looking down the road.
Think
What's
about
coming
it.
next?
Yes, you think about it. We have maps that became GIS, Geological Information Systems, ultimately Google in the internet. We had surveying that became GPS, Global Positioning Systems. So surveyors and engineers and contractors started using GPS for that. Faster, it's more accurate. Drafting became CAD, computer-aided drafting. All of these things evolved into technology, and we were right there. We were just talking earlier about these large format printers we had. They started out with little pin plotters and stuff. Eventually they came out with a new inkjet technology, and it can print a photograph in almost vivid color and almost original. It's that good. It's beautiful.
Amazing. Right.
That's the kind of technology was evolving, and we just grabbed it and went with it. I'm not going to say it was easy because the learning curve back then was really something else, but we managed to hang in there and stay and do well with it.
As you're talking, I was thinking something keeps clicking in my mind about what you said earlier. And I looked down at some of the notes I had, and that's the determination, right? And then to think that you sold that many units in the time frame that you did, that shows the determination that you had as right? A young person, and then you begin to use it in the work you did to build what you know. It's been really interesting. So which leads into the next question in a way, and that's how did you balance business, family, and culture across time in building your business, right?
So that's a challenge, and that's a good question. You're involved in running a business, building a business, sometimes more than once, because things change, especially in technology. It's constantly changing. And so you have to be able to stay on top of it. So that takes a lot of time. So you're running a business, you have personnel. We started out with 3 employees at Holman's, Mrs. Holman, Mr. Holman, myself. We grew to 10, we grew to 20. Before you know it, we were up to 50 employees. And all of us, back in the day when Mr. Holman and I could handle 25 employees on a one-on-one basis, that was fine. Once we got over 25 employees, things started to change, you know? And so you were more dependent on the supervisor to do some of that, the performance reviews and things of that nature, the training. So it changed in that matter. So you're running a business, learning about new products, seeing your customers, going to conferences. You're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, depending on the time of the year. And on top of that, you have a family. And by that time, I have two sons, at that point. And so how do you show up? How do you take your son to a soccer game on Saturday? How do you take him to a soccer practice on Thursday night, And then, you have to make time also to take them on a vacation, maybe to go to Disneyland. And so all of these things, can you make it home at 7 o'clock to eat dinner, And then once you do that, you go to sleep and you got to start it all over the next day. And if you don't start early, 8 o'clock, we were open 8 to 5. At one time we were doing more retail. We don't do as much retail. We don't do any retail now. But how do you balance that? And from a business point of view, I had to be here an hour early minimum before the store opened and before the phone started ringing. That was the only time I could get things done. I could get more done in 60 minutes than I could in the entire day, because you're always busy with customers, with employees. But if you have a passion for something, you do it. You make it happen.
Great word.
And you one of the things that my grandmother sold me on is education. So I've done the same thing with my children. They've all been in college, and that was my goal. My grandkids now, are going to all, and I have a great grandson now.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So I never thought I'd have grandkids, and I have a great grandson now. So, anyways, it's real important. I served. I also, another thing you have to be involved is the community, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You have to give back. I'm involved with the Greater Albuquerque Chamber, the Hispano Chamber. We used to have another organization called the Rio Grande Minority Purchasing Council, and it helped a lot of the small minority-owned and women-owned businesses get a kickstart. Kind of like your entrepreneurship guide. How do you get people involved in entrepreneurship and be successful and stay that way? There comes a sense of sustainability. So by doing that, like the Hispano Chamber, I was involved in the educational committee. Holman's has provided over 30 scholarships to students, and the difference between our scholarship and other scholarship, the student has an opportunity to work here at our business and learn about business and technology and things like that. That's a real plus for them. And then when September comes along, they can go back to school. If they want to work part-time, they can do that. Or if they want to come back the following summer, if they're going out of state.
So you were flexible.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
But it gives them an opportunity to get exposure to the real world, So that part of it works out good.
Well, Tony, what tools or approaches or what relationships, I think you've talked about this a little bit, but can you tell us a little bit more about the relationships that really helped you grow and survive regardless of the economy? Because I was looking back at the years that you started and the decades that have passed and all of the changes that we've seen in technology and in society and in economics and in the economy. So can you speak a little bit more to that in terms of the tools, but also the approaches that you use specifically? You've talked a little about it, and the relationships that you built, which were key.
I put a lot of those in my book, by the way. I think I could sit here and talk to you for about an hour on sustainability and relationships, and those are all very important. I think the first thing is you have to have a passion for your products or services that you offer to your customers. You have to build a good reputation with customers, but also with the community. Hence, you've got to get out and network with and get involved in organizations. And I learned a lot from that. Also, we were fortunate with our vendors like Hewlett Packard and Apple Computer. They would have workshops and seminars and other conferences available for training and learning more about not only the new product, the existing product, but also forthcoming product, so that you can have a better idea. With the customers, it was really about building that relationship, the trust. So if you did business with me, and I was going to, you were going to give me an opportunity to do business with you, I wanted to make sure that I would provide you with the ultimate customer experience, is what I had always intended to happen. And to pass it on to the other folks in our organization, we had to do the same thing. They had to be part of this team to drive people into. What I really enjoyed about that, if you were really happy with my service and you gave me a referral to another customer, and that referral came in and I started doing business with them, and before you know it, I may have ended up with several referrals from you. And that's like a tip, like somebody giving you a tip. And so you have to work towards that end and building that relationship first and foremost, so you have that trust and respect from that customer, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
The integrity.
If you can't accomplish that, be bold enough to pick up the phone, email, or text nowadays, and let people know that your product's going to be delayed or service is going to be delayed because the part is not available. We just ran into that because of supply chain issues.
Yes, that must have
That
been
was
major.
horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Current issue.
Yeah, when people want something, especially our customers, they're working in the national security arena and stuff like that, and not be able to deliver something, that was really, really painful. But communication is important, because if you let people know. I'll give you an example that Mr. Holman taught me. So we're at the corner of Copper, Wyoming, the old store. And there's a 7-Eleven store next door. And one day the phone went down. This is before computers. The phone went down. And Mr. Holman was real conservative. And he started getting concerned that the customers, if they were to call Holman's, that they were going to think we were out of business. So what does he do? He says, Tony, he gave me a roll of quarters. He said, go across the street. There's a payphone. Do you remember the old payphone?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And we didn't have cells in those days.
Right.
And call all our customers. He gave me a list and let them know we're not out of business, that our phone is down. Now, is that communication? Is that keeping in touch with your customer, let them know what's going? And it's no different now with email or texting or even a phone call. Let people know what's going on. And a lot of times, they'll forgive you, if you let them know.
And it strikes me that the referrals that were sent to you by the satisfied customers were the highest compliment you could have gotten.
Yes, absolutely.
That they would trust people that their relationships were built upon for you to take care of. So that's a tremendous compliment as well.
And that's how you build a business. It's not easy. It's not a slam dunk. You have to work at it. And then your folks or your team that are working with you, they have to do the same thing. And the minute one person stops doing that, the whole team suffers. Right now we're under real strict contracts. I mean, we have to deliver product within 3 working days. We have to, do the servicing. We have to be cleared and going into the labs and things like that. So there's a lot of requirements involved. We have to inventory merchandise, And technology is moving fast. You got to keep an eye on that. That's even worse than the produce store that, is going to have, spoiled produce,
The turnaround.
I would
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
the air traffic space being
Yeah.
paralyzed because of computers being down or shut down, at least to a
Good,
greatly
yeah.
limited way.
And it was more the software in that case than it
Right.
was the hardware. And so, but yes, those are things that
It called it to a halt.
Yeah.
It called things to a
Anytime you
halt.
have, so you have to try to add provisions there on, you don't no longer have the quarters and the payphones that you can call people, right? You have to do it other ways.
I'm hearing a lot of lessons for entrepreneurs, regardless of age, right? I mean, but which way transitions really nicely to the next question,
Good.
which is for young entrepreneurs who want to own their own business, right? And they may hear a lot about cash flow, and they may learn it in a certain way when they take a class. Can you share, or would you share the importance of it in your experience in the real world of running a business the way you have?
And that's a very good question, and a very large concern of mine for new entrepreneurs. Cash is king, right? And when you're starting off a business, all your money is going into the business. And if you start hiring people, that's going to go into the business. And then you got this thing called income tax, that comes out and you have to pay taxes. So, and then of course you have utilities, you have insurances and stuff. So you want to surround yourself first and foremost. Let me give you the kind of like the logical side, and then I'll give you the emotional side of my story. So I think the logical part is you want to surround yourself by experts, a good accountant. Accountants are invaluable. They can provide you a wealth of information from a financial point of view so that they can guide you through this good, bad economy. You need good legal advisors to make sure that you're doing things the right way. And that's the way I like doing things, because I like to sleep at night,
Yes.
and then you could have other types of advisors, that come into the picture, that help you make those kinds of decisions, that you need to make. Because sometimes along your business as it's growing, Mr. Ullman used to always tell me, too much growth could hurt you more than not enough growth. And that can happen, because if you have a lot of business and you don't have the cash to sustain that business, you're going to most likely go bankrupt, because you're not going to be able to handle it. So all the promises, all the respect, all the integrity just goes down the tubes.
Right.
And you have worked so hard to maintain the business. So my grandmother used to say, and Mr. Ullman taught me this too, save for a rainy day. You make a little money, yeah, you could pay yourself a bonus or whatever, but what if something happens along the way? And it's going to happen. It's happened to me every 10 years that I was in business for 50 years. So 5 cycles where things went wrong. We had the 9/11, we had the recessions, we had the savings and loans that went back.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that.
And that just set the country back, Well, it has an impact on your business. So it's a good idea to set something aside so you have something to sustain yourself for 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. And then whatever's left, okay, now we can do something for ourselves. Or you might want to invest in some new equipment. One of the things that I did that almost probably got me fired, Mr. Holman had promoted me at that point to vice president of the company. So I was on my way, right? And you mentioned earlier about, when did you want your own business? I think at a point in time, probably 10 years into being in the business from 66 to 76, I said, I want to learn how to run this business and make it my business. And so part of that was to, making sure that I understood all aspects of the business. And if I didn't understand something, I'd go to a class somewhere. It might be CNM at night or UNM, or I'd take something else, as a seminar. But by like I was saying, if you try to hold some money back in case of bad times, you were able to come back even stronger than the other person, than your competitors, because you have the money to sustain yourself. Plus, you're able to maintain payroll. I'm really proud of my son and my partner, John Centuro, that have run the company. During the pandemic for 2 years, no one lost their job. No one lost their insurance benefit during that time here. You know, that was amazing.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that didn't happen in the restaurant industry, as you know, in other industries, and but we were able to maintain, because you can't lose the talent we have. Our talent of people, we have extensive training. In fact, John Centura now is running the company. He's been my partner for 30 years, and he started the training program, an aggressive training program, to get people more up to date on what's going on, whether it's simple Simon things or technical things. You know, he's doing it all. But anyways, the other thing I wanted to share with you that I think you need to find something that, whether it's a product or service, that you have a passion for, right? You have to really have a passion. There was a thing I learned at a seminar one time called USP. Have you ever heard of that? USP? It stands for Unique Selling Proposition. It is something that is, you have to build this confidence in yourself that you can run this business. You have to learn a product better than anybody else. And this unique selling proposition has to be draped all over you. So when you walk down the hallway or you talk to a customer, it comes out of you. That confidence, that knowledge of knowing the product. I had an incident where we were selling surveying equipment at the time, and I had an opportunity to sell like 6 instruments, surveying instruments, to the New Mexico Department of Transportation over on Carlisle and the freeway. And the first time I went in there. There was one guy called Slim Cunningham. Big guy though. I don't know why I call him Slim. And he asked me, he was firing questions left and right, and I couldn't answer them. And I felt so embarrassed, you know. And so when I walked out of there, obviously I didn't get the order. But it was a learning experience for me, because the next 6 months later, another bid came out for 6 more of those instruments. And by doing that, before that, I studied my product like there's no tomorrow, day and night, setting that up, learning the specs and things like that. And then a good friend of mine told me, Tony, I want to listen to some motivation tapes to get, I wasn't a salesman, you know, I was a guy from the barrio, you know, just trying to learn my way through business and stuff. So, but by doing that, I walked into that room and I did my demonstration flawlessly. I mean, I could have done it with my eyes closed because I had practiced so many times. Practice is good, right? And so there comes Slim. Right out of there, he started asking me questions, one after another. Answer. Another question. Answer. And finished it up. At the end of the deal, said, you got the order. And so I walk out of that room proud, but before I'm going out, Slim called me. Tony, I need to talk to you. I said, oh, shoot, I'm going to get chewed out or something now. So he comes up to me, he says, you know, are you doing anything Saturday? I says, no, I'm not. Why? He said, well, could you come over to my house and demonstrate that instrument? Because my wife and I are looking at it for business we can do on our own. I said, sure, you know, I can bring this out to you. And so I went out to his house, I demonstrated to him, answered all his questions. It didn't take long because I had already done it. Right. And he said, okay, how much are you going to charge me for it? I told him, here's the price. Okay. Tells his wife, is that okay? And she said, sure, you know. And in the meantime, he says, she goes in the kitchen and brings me out a slice of apple pie and some coffee. Homemade apple pie. So talk about a turnaround, huh? You know, here I sell not only the DOT, but then I sell him the instrument, and I get a piece of apple pie fresh.
That was your welcome. You were in, huh?
Yeah, that's right. The relationship,
piece
right?
of pie.
It's back to that. Yeah.
So, well, you've really talked a lot about preparation.
Yes.
When you talk about being at the store early,
Yep.
anticipating what people need, reading and studying, learning all the kinds of things. So I have a couple of questions as we close our time towards the end. One question is, what has been beyond the monetary success, because that has spoken for itself, what else about your work with homeless has been the most satisfying for you? It's connected to the passion you've been talking about. And the second thing is, what's coming down the road? What do you see? Even if you're not as active, what do you see facing us that young entrepreneurs can prepare for as well?
Well, the first part I can answer pretty easily. I think taking the monetary out of it, of course, it's always nice to have a good income and all, but I think just the satisfaction of and the accomplishment. You take myself, for instance, and a lot of people never thought that I could do things that I have done, and my aim was to prove them wrong, and I did. But that wasn't the satisfaction. The satisfaction was working with people, building a team, building an organization that was second to none, building a customer relationship and a customer base. We currently sell to all the national labs from coast to coast. We have large contracts with Sandia National Labs, with Los Alamos National Labs, Lawrence Livermore, and the West Coast, all the way to Long Island. And then we have offices in Oak Ridge. We have Oak Ridge National Laboratories. We have a distribution center to help service the East. And so it goes on and on, And so just having the satisfaction of proving to them that a small entrepreneur, Hispanic business could do the job. And we could do it better than even Hewlett-Packard or Apple. And we have. We've proven to them that we have. We've done some really cool, innovative things where we've added value. You can get a lot of these products from different people, but they are not going to get the value that we provide on an ongoing basis, step by step, And so having the products that I've been exposed to, many, many products, many of them are Fortune 100 companies, and having the fact that we're able to represent them here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then having a relationship like I mentioned earlier with HP for 50 years. There's no one that could say that. There's no one.
It's a long time.
Because we were one of the first ones, Just even the relationship we have with Sandia. When Sandia opened up in 1987, this just-in-time systems contracting.
Oh, yes.
The difference.
When you had to, if you were going to have the product, you had to deliver the product in 3 working days, and deliver it to on-site, have it inventoried, stored here, and delivered there. That was quite an accomplishment because, they are doing some really cool things over there, and with this technology, and so it's up to us to make sure that we get it done, delivered on their schedule, and so all of that works in.
What do you see coming down the road?
So for me, it's not the end of the road, but I'm 76 years old now. Just turned 76 here a couple of weeks ago.
Happy birthday.
So my end of the road coming soon, but that's okay. I have no regrets. I think I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. Right. Have wonderful children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so good friends. And so I think that down the road, I think there's, with this organization especially, there's going to be some good opportunities. They're going to continue to grow. I always told my son and my partner, I took this business to the 80-yard line. It's up to you guys to take it across the goal, But also follow the path, follow my legacy that I've built, and Mr. Holman as well. And I think that's going to happen. For new entrepreneurs, this might be a good opportunity to start a business, and to follow through. One of the things that I forgot to mention early on that I think would be good as far as looking to the future, especially an entrepreneur, that I did I took a seminar on a weekend to do a business plan. I've never done anything like that. It was pretty much
Right.
off the cuff, right? And that's okay for a lot of people, you know, to live on the edge and, you know, something works fine, if it doesn't, keep on going, right? But there's got to be a better way, you know, because after a while you get tired of these, you know, hitting yourself in the head all the time. So I took the seminar on the business plan. I set it up, I did my business plan, and I followed it to the best of my ability. And I was amazed how well that worked. So my encouragement to a new entrepreneur or an existing one, do a business plan.
Great recommendation.
Where are you today? Where are you going to be tomorrow? You know, stuff like that. Do a financial, get your accountant to help you do a financial status on what you want to do. I had to do a little bit of that when we took on that Sandia contract. That was a major undertaking. When we did this, the HP 35 back in 1972, that was a major undertaking for our company at that time. And so you have to follow some kind of plan, financial as well as, you know, the product, as well as the inventories and things of that nature come into it. One of the things I did do, and I think this is another part of answer to your question that I think will be helpful. Mr. Holman mentioned to you he was from Memphis, Tennessee, and his mom still lived in Memphis, and she wasn't doing too well. So he went to go see her and visit with her, and he left me in charge. And at the time when he left me in charge, we were still using these old NCR machines, you know, the printed paper ledgers and all that stuff. Very time consuming, like the Flintstones, you know. And anyway, I had an opportunity to get a new system. So HP had back then like a mini mainframe computer, sold for $100,000. And there was a software that I thought could really work well, third party, for $25,000. $120,000. Doesn't sound like a lot of money today, but back then it was like probably $1 million today. In fact, it is $1 million today. So I found this. I had another good partnership is to work with your banker or anybody in a financial, because they can provide a lot of that part. Because I always used to ask the banker when they took me to lunch. You know, obviously I knew they wanted my business, but I asked them, what's important to you guys? What do you want to see from me? The 3 C's, right?
Right.
And so, but I bought this thing on a lease. And I obligated the corporation. And so, but in doing so, I did one smart thing that you could do an early payout without no penalty, right?
Okay.
Those are the days before that. Now that's part of the standard thing, but back then there wasn't. So I negotiated that. So when Mr. Holman came back and he found out I had done this, he was madder than hell. And so for 3 years, he told everybody, this is Tony's Frankenstein. Called it. And there for a while, it was working, but it wasn't working like really good. When we did the Sandia just in time, it was like made to fit like a glove, because that's what it was really made for. And so he had hired a consulting company to come in and do an analysis. And he said, oh, it's working great, Mr. Holman. That's not the answer he wanted to hear. But no, it was really, and we had that system for like 25 years, and we haven't found anything, you know, quite like it that did all the systems and everything else that we once did.
Proven itself.
Yeah, but you know, technology is what I'm getting. Automate as much as you can.
Okay.
And if you don't have the wherewithal, there are a lot of bright young students at the universities that are willing to come and work for you, you know, and learn the business part, and they can share the technology for you, you know, and help you get through some of that stuff, you know, and that, because if you do that, you're going to be more productive. We started with the e-commerce in 2001. Back when the internet was just coming into being. And one of the things I was trying to do with Hispano, I was a vice chair at the time of this Hispano, and I also worked with the Greater Albuquerque and other organizations, is to try to bring e-commerce into the small business sector. And I said, and you know, this is not a fad. This is going to be something that's going to be here for a long time to come. So I was unable. That was probably one of my setbacks that I think, or my disappointments. I was unable to get a lot of the small business to grasp the e-commerce, and there wasn't anything off the shelf. So we tried to come up with some stuff that would work, and I invested a lot of money in our e-commerce, and within a year or two, we were doing 40% of our business on e-commerce.
How about
Now, if some people had taken my advice back then and got into e-commerce in 2001, when 2020 hit with the pandemic, think of the difference they would have made for their business. To be able to do something online, products or services, they would have been able to sustain their business. So those are the kind of opportunities you look for. Yes, you have to have the cash. You have to have good relationship with your financial institution, but you also need to be to a point where you have the automation help you with the business in the way that it'll perform and increase your productivity and your accuracy.
So look ahead.
Okay, look ahead.
Always look
Exactly.
ahead. Yeah.
Exactly. So the main points I think we've been hearing from you today are find your passion and pursue it.
Yes.
So you knew that intuitively in a way when you walked into Holman's and then embraced it.
2 weeks after a while.
2 weeks. Right, 2 weeks. That's
14 days.
Pretty quick turnaround there.
It's clear. The passion's in your face. It
Right.
shows.
Oh,
It's
good.
still as if it-
Good.
as if
It
it
still
were
comes out, huh?
As if it were
Comes out,
yesterday. Be prepared. That's the other important takeaway is be prepared for whatever's going to happen. The phones are down. Here's some quarters. Yeah, that's what people used to do. What do you do when people get sick? What do you do when the economy tanks? What have you? Also, the other P is to pay the price. You've paid the price with the hours that you've put into the work.
Of course.
You've paid the price by spending your own time whenever you could or when you had to learn more. And we always pay a price. There's no way that human beings don't pay a price. And by that I mean not just money,
That's right.
but being aware of the family. What price are they paying? If you're doing this, what's happening with them? What price are you paying? So you always keep your eye, not in a necessarily just the monetary way, but what does it cost in relationships and your own sense of happiness and satisfaction? And that basically, I hear that it's built on the relationships that you built and the trust, which is what you ultimately had with your grandparents, but also certainly with the Holmans.
And let me add, for those of you that want to know more, make sure you pick up a copy of From the Barrio to the Boardroom with all the insights that Mr. Trujillo has shared with us today, and more. But you'll see the common themes of what he's talking about in his book. Okay.
So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Learned a lot from you.
Thank you, Tony.